The lawyer's hand trembled as he reached for a sealed envelope tucked beneath the will. My cousin Victoria's laughter died in her throat. The mahogany conference room fell silent, except for the tick of an antique clock. "Actually," Mr. Henderson said, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's more." My Aunt Patricia's smirk vanished. Uncle Robert shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair. Victoria's face drained of color as she stared at the envelope marked with my grandmother's distinctive handwriting, "For Lily's eyes only, to be read after initial will." 2 minutes earlier, Victoria had been mocking me openly. "Don't waste time reading her name," she'd sneered to the lawyer. "She's cut out. Grandma made that crystal clear before she died." Aunt Patricia had nodded smugly. "She doesn't deserve a cent. Not after abandoning the family business to chase those ridiculous art dreams." I had sat there in my simple black dress, surrounded by their designer suits and expensive jewelry, saying nothing. Let them think they'd won. Let them believe Grandma had left me with nothing but bitter memories. But now Mr. Henderson was breaking the wax seal, and I could see my grandmother's final surprise taking shape. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd also love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. Now, let's see what Grandma really had planned. The envelope rustled as Mr. Henderson unfolded its contents. His eyebrows shot up as he scanned the pages. Then he looked directly at me with something that might have been admiration. "Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood left specific instructions," he began, his voice gaining strength. "These documents were to be revealed only after the initial will reading, and only if certain reactions occurred." Victoria leaned forward aggressively. "What kind of documents? This is ridiculous. We already heard the will. The estate goes to the blood relatives who stayed loyal to the family." "Yes," Mr. Henderson said carefully, "to the blood relatives." Something in his tone made my pulse quicken. I thought back to that strange conversation I'd had with Grandma 3 months before she died. She'd been in her study, surrounded by old photo albums and documents I'd never seen before. "Lily," she'd said, "I need you to witness something for me. Just sign here as a witness. Nothing more." The document had been face down. I'd signed without thinking much about it. Grandma had been having me sign witness papers for months as she organized her affairs. Now, as Mr. Henderson spread several pages across the conference table, I wondered if that moment had been more significant than I'd realized. "The first document," he announced, "is a paternity test report conducted by Genolabs Medical Center 6 months ago." The room went dead quiet. Victoria's face turned ashen. "According to these DNA results, comparing samples from Eleanor Blackwood and all potential heirs." He paused, studying Victoria with clinical precision. "Victoria Blackwood is not biologically related to the deceased." The words hit like a physical blow. Victoria stumbled backward, gripping her chair. "That's impossible," she gasped. "I'm her brother's daughter. Robert is my father." Uncle Robert's face had gone purple. "This is insane. Of course she's my daughter. Look at her. She has the family nose, the family chin." But Mr. Henderson was already laying out the second document. A birth certificate, hospital records, and a letter in my grandmother's handwriting. "Mrs. Blackwood discovered the truth 18 months ago," the lawyer continued. "She hired a private investigator after noticing certain inconsistencies in family medical records." The room spun around me as the full picture emerged. Victoria wasn't Uncle Robert's biological daughter. She'd been raised as a Blackwood, had grown up believing she was entitled to the family fortune, had spent years positioning herself as Grandma's favorite heir. And it was all built on a lie. "This is a fabrication," Patricia snarled, snatching at the papers. "Mother would never have done secret paternity tests. She trusted family." She trusted, but she verified, Mr. Henderson replied calmly. Especially after the incident with the forged power of attorney. My head snapped up. What forged power of attorney? Victoria's eyes darted toward the door. Uncle Robert loosened his tie like he was suffocating. 6 months ago, Mr. Henderson explained, someone attempted to transfer ownership of Blackwood Industries using a forged power of attorney document. The attempt failed, but it prompted Mrs. Blackwood to investigate more thoroughly. I remembered now. Grandma had called me in tears one night, saying someone in the family was trying to steal everything she'd built. I'd thought she was being paranoid. The doctors said her mind was still sharp, but everyone assumed grief over Grandpa's death was making her suspicious. She hadn't been paranoid at all. The DNA test was Mrs. Blackwood's way of ensuring the true family members inherited what rightfully belonged to them, Mr. Henderson continued. Victoria, as you are not biologically related to Eleanor Blackwood, you are disqualified from inheriting any portion of the estate. Victoria collapsed into her chair, hyperventilating. This can't be happening. This can't be real. But Mr. Henderson wasn't finished. He pulled out a third document, this one thick and bound in blue legal covers. There's also the matter of the Blackwood mansion and primary business assets. My heart hammered. Even without Victoria in the picture, the estate would be split between Uncle Robert, Aunt Patricia, and me. The house alone was worth $12 million. According to this deed transfer, executed 3 years ago and witnessed by. He glanced at me meaningfully. Witnessed by Lily Blackwood, the Blackwood family mansion and controlling interest in Blackwood Industries were signed over to Miss Lily Blackwood in their entirety. The words didn't register at first. Then they hit me like a freight train. I'm sorry, what? I whispered. Mr. Henderson smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him all day. The will reading we just completed covers Mrs. Blackwood's personal assets, jewelry, and smaller holdings. But the mansion, the business, the investment portfolio, all of that was legally transferred to you 3 years ago. Today's will simply confirms that you are now the sole owner, and that all current occupants have 30 days to vacate the premises. The room erupted. What? Patricia shrieked, jumping to her feet. She can't have done that. The mansion is the family seat. We've lived there for generations. That's impossible, Robert shouted. I would have known if Mother was signing over the house. But I was remembering now. 3 years ago, Grandma had asked me to come to her study. She'd been surrounded by lawyers and paperwork. Just witness signatures, dear, she'd said. Boring legal stuff. I'm updating all my documentation. I'd signed witness line after witness line, barely reading the documents. Grandma had said it was routine estate planning. I'd been focused on my art exhibition that week, distracted and rushing. I had unknowingly witnessed my own inheritance. Mrs. Blackwood was very specific in her instructions. Mr. Henderson continued, his voice rising above their protests. She wanted to ensure that family loyalty was rewarded, and that those who tried to manipulate or defraud the estate would be left with nothing. He looked directly at Victoria and Uncle Robert. She also left detailed evidence of the attempted power of attorney fraud, including security footage and forensic analysis of the forged signature. Victoria's face crumpled. She buried her head in her hands, sobbing. You can't prove anything, Robert said desperately. Even if Victoria isn't. Even if there was a mistake about paternity, that doesn't mean. Actually, we can prove quite a bit. Mr. Henderson opened a manila folder. Bank records. Showing large cash withdrawals from your personal account the day before the forged documents appeared. Security footage of you leaving the law offices of Morrison and Associates, the same firm that was duped by the fake power of attorney. And testimony from 3 witnesses who heard you discussing plans to get what the family deserves before Eleanor's death. Are you enjoying this story? If so, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. The twists are just getting started, and I promise you won't want to miss what happens next. The walls seemed to be closing in. Uncle Robert's face had gone from purple to gray. He slumped in his chair like a deflated balloon. She played us, he whispered. Mother played us all along. She protected herself, I corrected, my voice stronger than I'd felt in years. And she protected me. Patricia whirled on me, her face twisted with rage. You little witch. You planned this whole thing. You manipulated a dying old woman. I didn't know, I said honestly. I had no idea what I was signing. I trusted Grandma, just like you claim you did. She must have been losing her mind, Victoria sobbed. None of this makes sense. I grew up in this family. I am a Blackwood. You grew up believing you were a Blackwood, Mr. Henderson said gently. But genetics don't lie. The DNA evidence is conclusive. He turned to address the room. Mrs. Blackwood spent the last year of her life investigating suspicious activities within the family. The forged power of attorney was just the beginning. She discovered unexplained business transactions, forged signatures on company documents, and attempts to access her private financial accounts. My mind raced back through the last few years. All those times Victoria had volunteered to help with Grandma's paperwork. All those private conversations between Uncle Robert and the business accountants. All those family meetings I'd been excluded from because I was too busy with art nonsense to understand business matters. They'd been planning to steal everything. And Grandma had figured it out. The beauty of Mrs. Blackwood's plan, Mr. Henderson continued, is that she let the perpetrators reveal themselves. She gave them every opportunity to come forward, to confess, to show genuine remorse. Instead, they doubled down on their deception. Victoria's sobs turned to rage. She stood up, pointing an accusatory finger at me. This is theft. Legal theft. I don't care what some DNA test says, I was raised as her granddaughter. I deserve something. You deserve exactly what you contributed to this family, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart, which, according to these documents, was fraud, manipulation, and attempted theft. Don't you dare lecture me about family contribution, she screamed. You abandoned us. You moved across the country to paint pretty pictures while we took care of Grandma. We were there for her. You were there to steal from her, I shot back, my composure finally cracking. You weren't taking care of her, you were positioning yourselves to rob her. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. Perhaps we should review the specific timeline of events. He pulled out a thick folder labeled Investigation Summary. 18 months ago, Eleanor Blackwood began noticing discrepancies in her business accounts. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers that she hadn't authorized. When she questioned family members about these transactions, she was told they were routine business expenses. He flipped through several pages of bank statements and business records. 12 months ago, Mrs. Blackwood hired private investigator James Crawford to monitor her family members' activities. She also installed hidden security cameras throughout her home office and private study. The blood drained from Robert's face. She was spying on us? She was protecting herself from thieves, I said coldly. Mr. Henderson continued his timeline. 10 months ago, the investigation revealed that Victoria and Robert had been systematically transferring small amounts from business accounts to personal holdings. They were also attempting to change beneficiary information on several life insurance policies. Victoria's denial came out as a whisper. We needed money. The business was struggling. We were going to pay it back. 8 months ago, the lawyer pressed on, Mrs. Blackwood discovered the attempted power of attorney fraud. That's when she ordered the DNA testing and began transferring her major assets to protect them. He looked directly at me. She also began recording conversations with family members, gathering evidence of their plans to contest her will and challenge any inheritance that didn't favor them. My heart pounded as I realized the full scope of Grandma's preparation. She'd been building a case, documenting everything, making sure the truth would come out even after her death. The final straw, Mr. Henderson said, his voice heavy with disgust, came 6 weeks before Mrs. Blackwood's death. Victoria was caught on security footage attempting to photocopy her grandmother's private financial documents. Victoria's face went white. I was trying to help organize her papers. At 2 a.m.? While she was sleeping. While photographing confidential bank statements and investment portfolios. The room fell silent except for Victoria's ragged breathing. Mr. Henderson placed a final document on the table. This is Mrs. Blackwood's personal letter to Lily, to be read after the legal proceedings were complete. With shaking hands, I took the envelope marked with my name in Grandma's familiar handwriting. The paper felt heavy, substantial. Final. My dearest Lily, I read aloud, my voice breaking slightly. If you are reading this, then my suspicions about the family were correct, and you now know the truth about Victoria's parentage and the theft attempts. I paused, steadying myself. I want you to know that transferring the estate to you was not a decision I made lightly. You were the only family member who never asked me for money, never pressured me about my will, never tried to manipulate my business decisions. Victoria's sobbing grew louder.
More importantly, I continued reading, you were the only one who visited me because you wanted to spend time with me, not because you wanted something from me. You listened to my stories, shared your art with me, and treated me like a person instead of a bank account. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. The mansion is yours now, along with the business and all associated assets. I trust you to use this inheritance wisely and to honor the family name in ways that your relatives could not. I looked up at the faces around the conference table. Uncle Robert stared at his hands. Patricia had tears streaming down her cheeks. Victoria looked like she'd been struck by lightning. There's more, I said softly, returning to the letter. I have arranged for Victoria to receive a small trust fund, enough for her education and living expenses, because despite everything, she was raised as my granddaughter and I cannot see her destitute. However, Robert and Patricia will receive nothing, as they are the primary architects of the deception and theft. Robert's head snapped up. What trust fund? She's not even family. Mrs. Blackwood set aside $50,000, Mr. Henderson explained. Enough for Victoria to start over, get an education, build a new life. It was an act of mercy, not obligation. Victoria looked up through her tears. $50,000? That's it? The estate is worth millions. The estate belongs to the family, I said firmly. You're not family. According to the DNA test, you're not even Robert's daughter. Who are you, Victoria? Who are your real parents? The question hung in the air like a sword. Victoria's face crumpled as the full weight of her situation hit her. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know who I am anymore. Patricia spoke for the first time in minutes, her voice hollow. We raised her as our own. Robert's wife, my sister-in-law, she had an affair. We found out when Victoria was 2 years old, but we decided to keep it quiet, to raise her as a Blackwood anyway. So you've known for over 20 years that she wasn't really family, I said slowly. And you still encouraged her to expect an inheritance. She has family, Robert insisted desperately. Blood doesn't matter. Love matters. We loved her like our own daughter. If blood doesn't matter, I replied, my voice ice cold, then why did you constantly tell me that I wasn't worthy of inheriting because I didn't have true Blackwood loyalty? Why did you spend years convincing Grandma that I had abandoned the family? The hypocrisy hit them like a physical blow. They had no answer. Mr. Henderson gathered his papers efficiently. The legal proceedings are complete. Lily, you now own the Blackwood Mansion, Blackwood Industries, and all associated assets. The current occupants have 30 days to relocate. He turned to Victoria. Your trust fund will be available within 1 week. I suggest you use this time to make plans for your future. As the family filed out of the conference room, Victoria lingered behind. Her face was streaked with tears, her designer makeup ruined. Lily, she said quietly, I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse or just another manipulation. Sorry for trying to steal from Grandma, or sorry for getting caught? I asked. She flinched. Both, I guess. I never meant for it to go this far. I grew up believing I deserved this. I thought it was my birthright. It was never your birthright, Victoria. It was a gift that had to be earned. She nodded slowly, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. What am I supposed to do now? I don't know how to be anyone other than Victoria Blackwood. For a moment, I felt genuine pity for her. She'd been living a lie her entire life, and now that lie had been stripped away, leaving her with nothing but uncertainty. You figure out who you really are, I said softly. You take that $50,000 and you build a life that isn't based on fraud or manipulation. You learn to earn things instead of stealing them. She stood at the door for a moment, looking back at me with something that might have been respect. You're stronger than I thought you were, she admitted. Grandma chose well. After she left, I sat alone in the conference room, staring at the pile of legal documents that had just changed my life forever. The mansion, the business, the responsibility. Mr. Henderson returned with a final folder. There's one more thing your grandmother wanted you to have, he said, placing an ornate wooden box on the table. She called it your real inheritance. Inside the box were dozens of letters, all addressed to me in Grandma's handwriting. Letters she'd written over the years but never sent. Letters about family history, business lessons, personal advice, and love. The top letter was dated just 2 weeks before her death. My darling Lily, by now you know the truth about our family. You know about the theft, the lies, the betrayal. I want you to know that discovering these truths broke my heart, but it also filled me with pride in you. You could have been part of their schemes. They tried to recruit you several times over the years, offering you partnerships and business opportunities that would have made you complicit in their fraud. But you always refused. You always chose your own path. That independence, that integrity, that's your real inheritance. The money and property are just tools. Use them to build something beautiful, something honest, something that honors what our family name used to represent. I closed the letter and looked around the empty conference room. Through the tall windows, I could see the city where I'd been born, the place I'd left behind to pursue my dreams. Now I was back, not as the abandoned granddaughter who disappointed the family, but as the owner of everything they tried to steal. I hope you're enjoying this story. Please let me know in the comments below what you think should happen next. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support means everything to me. The next morning, I stood in front of the Blackwood mansion for the first time in 3 years. It looked exactly the same, imposing, elegant, intimidating. But now it was mine. Uncle Robert and Patricia were loading boxes into a moving truck parked in the circular driveway. They looked up when my car pulled through the iron gates, their faces hardening with resentment. Come to gloat, Patricia called out bitterly. Come to help, I replied, getting out of my car. They stared at me in shock. You have 29 days left, I continued. That's plenty of time to pack properly and find a good place to live. I'm not here to make this harder than it needs to be. Robert dropped the box he'd been carrying. You're helping us move? I'm helping you transition, I corrected. There's a difference. I walked up the front steps and used my key. Grandma had given me a key years ago, though I never thought I'd use it like this, to open the massive oak doors.
The foyer was exactly as I remembered it. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, family portraits lining the walls. But now those portraits looked different to me. They weren't symbols of a legacy I could never live up to. They were symbols of a responsibility I'd inherited. In the study, I found Victoria packing books into boxes. She looked up when I entered, her eyes red from crying. I found some things, she said quietly, gesturing to a small pile of items on the desk. Things that belong to you. Grandma kept them in a special drawer. The items were from my childhood. Report cards, art projects, photos from family vacations. Things I'd assumed had been thrown away years ago. She kept everything, Victoria continued. Every letter you sent, every photo you mailed, every newspaper clipping about your art exhibitions. She was so proud of you, Lily. She showed these things to visitors all the time. I picked up a crayon drawing I'd made when I was 7, a picture of the family mansion, with stick figures of all of us standing in front of it. Even then, I'd drawn myself slightly apart from the others, standing near a tree with my arms full of flowers. I was jealous, Victoria admitted. Even when we were kids, I was jealous of how much she loved you. You barely visited, but you were still her favorite. She didn't love me more, I said softly. She loved me differently. She loved you too, Victoria. That trust fund proves it. Victoria nodded, tears streaming down her face again. I know. I wish I'd been worthy of it. Over the next 3 weeks, I helped my uncle and aunt find a new house and assisted with their move. It wasn't forgiveness. What they'd done was unforgivable. But it was closure. Victoria took a job in another city and enrolled in community college. The trust fund would cover her expenses while she figured out her new life. Before she left, she came to say goodbye. I keep thinking about that DNA test, she said as we stood in the mansion's garden. All my life, I've wondered why I never quite fit in. Now I know. Maybe not fitting in was a blessing, I suggested. Maybe it saved you from becoming like them. She smiled sadly. Maybe. I'll never know for sure. She paused, then added, for what it's worth, I think you'll be good at this. Better than any of us ever were. After they were all gone, I walked through the empty mansion alone. Room after room of memories, both good and bad. The house felt different without their presence, lighter somehow, but also lonely. In Grandma's bedroom, I found one final surprise. Taped to the back of her vanity mirror was an envelope with my name on it. Inside was a single photograph, Grandma and me in the garden, taken during my last visit. 3 months before she died. We were both laughing at something, our faces bright with genuine joy. On the back, she'd written, "This is how I want to be remembered. Not as someone who was betrayed by family, but as someone who found joy with the granddaughter who chose love over greed." I sat on her bed, holding the photo, and finally let myself cry. Not for the inheritance, not for the vindication, but for the grandmother who'd loved me enough to protect me from the family's poison. When I was done crying, I walked to the business district and stood outside Blackwood Industries. The building was smaller than I'd remembered, but still impressive. A bronze plaque by the entrance read, "Founded 1952, Eleanor Blackwood, President." Now it would read, "Founded 1952, Lily Blackwood, President." The responsibility felt enormous. I knew nothing about running a business. I was an artist, not a corporate executive. But I also knew that Grandma wouldn't have left me something I couldn't handle. 6 months later, I was sitting in Grandma's old office, now my office, reviewing quarterly reports. The business was thriving. The employees, it turned out, were relieved to have leadership that wasn't constantly trying to embezzle from company accounts. My assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Blackwood, there's someone here to see you. She says she's family, but she's not on the visitor list." I looked up, curious. "Send her in." The woman who entered was in her 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes. She looked nervous but determined. "Ms. Blackwood, I'm Janet Morrison. I believe I'm Victoria's mother." My heart stopped. Her biological mother? Janet nodded. I saw the news coverage about the will reading. The DNA test results were mentioned in some of the articles. I've been trying to find Victoria for 25 years. I gestured for her to sit down, my mind racing. She doesn't know who her real parents are. She's been searching for answers. I know, Janet said, tears in her eyes. I was 18 when I had her. Robert's wife. Patricia's sister. She couldn't have children. They offered to adopt Victoria, to give her opportunities one couldn't provide. I was young and scared, so I agreed. But then Patricia's sister died, I said, remembering fragments of family history. Patricia and Robert raised Victoria themselves. Janet nodded. They promised to tell her about me when she was older. They said I could be part of her life eventually. But years passed, and they never contacted me. I tried reaching out, but they said Victoria didn't want to know about her birth mother. That's not true, I said firmly. Victoria has always felt like something was missing. She's always wondered about her identity. Janet wiped her eyes. When I saw the news about the DNA test, I realized they'd been lying to both of us all these years. Victoria doesn't even know I exist, does she? I shook my head. But she wants to. She's been asking questions, trying to understand who she really is. I reached for my phone. Would you like me to call her? Janet's face lit up with hope and terror in equal measure. Would you? I've dreamed of this moment for so long, but I'm terrified she'll hate me for giving her up. The phone call was awkward at first. Victoria was suspicious, thinking it might be another manipulation. But when Janet started sharing details about Victoria's birth, about the tiny birthmark on her shoulder that no one else knew about the lullaby she used to sing, Victoria broke down crying. I want to meet you, Victoria whispered over the phone. I need to meet you. They arranged to meet the following weekend. I offered to let them use the mansion neutral ground where Victoria could feel comfortable and Janet could see where her daughter had grown up. The meeting was emotional, awkward, and beautiful all at once. Janet brought photo albums showing Victoria's extended family, grandparents, cousins, siblings Victoria never knew existed. Victoria brought questions, 25 years worth of wondering and pain and hope. I watched from a distance as they sat in the garden, sharing stories and trying to build a bridge across decades of separation. It reminded me of my own relationship with Grandma. Complicated, precious, worth fighting for. As the sun set over the mansion grounds, Victoria came to find me. Thank you, she said simply, for making this possible. For not shutting the door on me completely. Everyone deserves to know where they come from, I replied. Even if the journey there is complicated. She nodded thoughtfully. I've been thinking about what you said that day in the lawyer's office, about figuring out who I really am. And I think I'm starting to understand. I'm not Victoria Blackwood, I never was. But I'm not just the victim of everyone else's lies either. I'm Janet Morrison's daughter. I'm someone with a real family who wants to know me for who I am, not what I can give them. She paused, looking back at the mansion. I wasted so much time trying to claim something that was never mine. I could have spent that time building something that actually belonged to me. It's not too late, I said. You're still young. You can still build whatever kind of life you want. Victoria smiled, the first genuinely happy smile I'd seen from her since we were children. I think I'd like to try. This story is almost over, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of the twists? Did you see them coming? Please share your reactions. I read every single comment and your feedback helps me create better stories. A year later, I received a wedding invitation. Victoria Morrison, she'd legally changed her name, was marrying a teacher she'd met in college. The wedding was small, held in Janet's backyard, surrounded by the family Victoria had never known existed. I attended the ceremony, along with Mr. Henderson and several of Victoria's new cousins. It was nothing like the elaborate Blackwood family events I remembered from childhood. There was no pretense, no competition, no underlying schemes. Just genuine love and celebration. During the reception, Victoria pulled me aside. "I need to thank you again," she said. "Not just for connecting me with my real mother, but for showing me what integrity looks like." "I don't understand." "That day in the lawyer's office, you could have been cruel. You could have thrown us out with nothing. You could have pressed charges for the attempted fraud. Instead, you helped us transition with dignity. That taught me more about character than anything else ever could." She gestured toward her new family. "These people don't care that I don't have money or status. They care that I'm kind, that I'm honest, that I contribute to the family instead of taking from it. I learned those values from watching how you handled our situation." As I drove home that evening, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed. The scared, uncertain artist who'd sat in that conference room a year ago was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned to carry responsibility with grace, to honor family legacy while building something new. The mansion was no longer empty. I'd converted several rooms into art studios and had started a program for young artists who couldn't afford traditional gallery spaces. The house was alive again, filled with creativity and possibility instead of schemes and resentment. Blackwood Industries was thriving under honest management. We'd implemented transparency policies, employee profit sharing, and community investment programs. The company Grandma had built was finally living up to the values she'd intended it to represent. But the most important change was internal. I'd learned that real inheritance isn't about money or property, it's about values, choices, and the courage to do what's right even when it's difficult. Grandma's final lesson wasn't written in any will or legal document. It was demonstrated through her actions: protect what matters, reward integrity, and never let fear prevent you from standing up for truth. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Victoria had been honest from the beginning. If Uncle Robert and Patricia had chosen loyalty over greed. If they'd seen family as something to nurture instead of something to exploit. But then I realized that their choices led to my opportunity. Their betrayal revealed Grandma's wisdom. Their greed highlighted the value of integrity. In the end, they didn't just lose an inheritance, they lost the chance to be part of something meaningful. That loss was their choice, just as my inheritance was Grandma's choice. Every evening, I walk through the mansion gardens where Grandma and I used to talk about life, art, and family. I can almost hear her voice in the wind, reminding me that true wealth isn't what you accumulate, but what you contribute. The will reading changed everything, but not in the way anyone expected. It didn't just redistribute money, it redistributed truth. And truth, as it turned out, was the most valuable inheritance of all. Sometimes the family that deserves your legacy isn't the one you were born into, but the one you choose to build. Sometimes the greatest gift you can leave someone isn't what they expect, but what they need to become who they're meant to be. Grandma knew that long before the rest of us figured it out. She just had to wait for the right moment to reveal her final, perfect plan. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. Please share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing your reactions and ideas for future stories. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support makes these stories possible, and I'm grateful for every single view, like, and comment. Until next time, remember, the truth always finds a way to surface, especially when it comes to family.